There is a significant portion of the population that has a hard time reading small print. And within that category, you have some people that even if the print is somewhat large, it's still hard for them to read. There are people who have some pretty difficult problems with sight impairment, and I've heard from them on my channel before. This is one of those Bibles. I've reviewed one like this in the NLT, but now we have one here in the ESV. It's a really helpful solution for people who have eyesight problems. It's the Super Giant Print Bible. And what's nice about this one is it is a genuine leather cover, genuine leather black. So yes, it is geared toward someone who really needs help with nice large print, but it's still a really beautifully designed Bible. Kind of a very classic look to it. The back here, you do see the size of the type. It's a 17-point type, so that's quite large. Now, there are some trade-offs with having font that large. One thing we'll see here is the Bible is going to be pretty hefty, pretty large Bible. And also it's going to be a lot of pages, so they might be thinner pages as a result. Retails here for $100, $99.99. There's the ISBN number. So that's the one we're looking at. Let's take a look at this Bible. Now you'll notice here the genuine leather for the Crossway Bibles. A lot of times it's this kind of rough, I think it's a printed grain, but it is real leather. So even though it's a printed grain on there, the leather itself is real. It's more of a stiff leather, but it is nice to grip and certainly is going to be sturdy. This one also does have this tooled line on the spine, printed in gold. You have some printed spine hubs, Holy Bible, the ESV logo, English Standard Version printed, and then the Crossway emblem there. The back does say genuine leather and gives the ISBN number here as well. Now, one thing I think people are going to complain about is the ribbon. There's only one, and it's kind of a, I mean, it's probably a typical size ribbon, but for a Bible this big, it looks kind of small. The main thing, though, is that there's only one of them. It looks, too, like it's a single-sided ribbon, so there's a sheen on one side and more of a matte finish on the other. So maybe for future editions, that's an improvement I'm sure a lot of people would like, would be some nicer ribbons and more of them in this Bible. But the pages are gold gilt, and it's not going to be, the paper on a Bible like this, we'll look inside here, I think it's printed in China. It's not the best paper. You might have to take some time to unstick the pages. And, you know, the gilt looks, I think, pretty good. So it's not the highest quality, but it's definitely a good quality. I'd call it like a mid-grade Bible. Certainly going to be something that is sturdy and, again, looks very nice. The paste down on the inside, and this is why I say it's kind of mid-grades. You can see the construction here. It's not a paper paste down. It's actually more of that vinyl type material for the paste down here and the end sheet here. Then you have some cardstock, blank cardstock. That's good to see. I think that kind of gives more heft to the Bible, adds to the durability, the structure of it. Then you have a presentation page in nice matte cardstock. Then a title page, publisher title page, and on the other side of that publisher title page, you have the copyright information. This is 2024. I don't know when the first edition of this came out. It looks like it's the 8th printing of it. So I believe this has been out for a while, but I know this is something that people should know about if you're looking for an ESV with nice, very large print, super giant print, they call it. And you can see here, it is really quite large print, super giant, as they say. So there's the table of contents, the Old Testament, the New Testament. This also shows you what I mean about having a lot of pages. Because the print's so large, they can only get the Old Testament contents on this page. They have to go to a new page for the New Testament. Still has the preface, though, for the English Standard Version, so you're going to get a lot of the things you see in their other Bibles, all still here. And all of this, which is great to see, is in large print. I always think it's kind of weird when they'll have really large print for the Bible text, but then not carry that over to the other materials. If someone needs a large print, they need it throughout the entire volume. So that's good to see them being consistent. So here's the Old Testament title page. And getting into the biblical text, it's a double column format with a vertical line separating the columns. And the font is basically the same font and design that you see in their other Bibles, but just enlarged. Now, that being said, it looks like the book titles are not enlarged that much. They seem like a very similar size with what you see in other Bibles, because a lot of times the book title is a lot larger than the biblical text print. So you can see here they're actually kind of a similar size, comparatively speaking, when you look at it in comparison with other Bibles. But you do have the section headings in that italicized font. You have, I think it's a lexicon font for the Bible text, and it is line matched. It is, as I said, going to be thinner paper. I don't know the GSM, but I do notice there is definitely ghosting, so it's a good thing that it's line matched. And of course, they do have poetic setting. We'll look at more poetry as we get into Psalms, but they do also on the bottom here have footnotes. And the size of the footnotes might be hard for people to read if they really have eye problems. I can kind of see why they had to make a judgment call there. But there's still bigger print for these footnotes than you see in a lot of other Bibles. But might be too small for people who need print this large. But still, it's good they have the footnotes in there. And if someone needs to use maybe a magnifying glass or something like that at times, I'm sure they could do that if they need it for the footnotes. But overall, I think this is a very useful Bible. I'm in Genesis. You can already see it's laying quite flat. So that's another real good feature about this Bible is how flat it lays, even though it's such a large volume. You're seeing the text come out onto the pages here. It's not like it's going into the gutter there and hard to see. The verse numbers are nice and easy to find. They're kind of I would say a bolder print to the verse numbers and fairly large. You have the page numbers at the top inside corners and then references on the outside there showing you where you are in the Bible. So I think I'd love to see in the comments people who have eyesight issues. Do you find Bibles like this to be helpful? Do you already own Bibles like this? I'd love to know your feedback on what you're seeing here, because I really think this is something that is very, very useful, and I'm so glad that Crossway and other publishers are making Bibles like this. I also want to thank Crossway for sending me the Bibles that they send me like this for review. I really do appreciate having the opportunity to look at these. And here we're getting into poetry. You can see really, to me, it looks similar to how they do poetry in their other Bibles. You will have words sometimes that come to the end there, just single words at the end of the poetic line that go to the next line. That's very common in their Bibles. This being such a large print and not having a lot of space for words per line, you can see why that happens. But it's not too bad. At least you're getting, here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words there. That's not too bad. But again, it's going to be trade-offs. Thinner paper, not as much space on the page per word. Those are issues you have with very large print, and then a very, significantly larger size Bible. And I will measure it just so you can see. But I do want to get through the Bible here so you can kind of get an overview of what it looks like. Getting into the New Testament. So here's the New Testament title page. The end of the Old Testament is on page 1940. So if you're familiar with other Bibles, that is a high page count. So That being said, even though they are probably having to use a thinner paper, and certainly a lot of the paper, it's still a pretty manageable Bible for what it is. Certainly something you can have on a desk to read quite easily, but it is something you can carry if you need to. It's not as big as like a pulpit Bible, I wouldn't say. New Testament, as we go through here, the ESV formatting, a lot of you are familiar with that. It doesn't really highlight things the way other translations do, which to some people that's actually better. They like more the consistent formatting maybe, which honestly is a lot how the NIV has always been. So you do get quotes from the Old Testament, but there's no special print for them. Just in this particular case, they have it in quotes. So I think they do put quotation marks for Old Testament quotes, at least at times, but not necessarily in kind of special print. And there are just a lot of pages per book here, so it takes a while to get through. As we get to the end of the book of Revelation, that is on page 2498, so we're looking at about 2,500 pages of biblical text. And then we get to the maps. Now the maps, I will say, the print does not to me look any larger. So that is something that maybe fell through the cracks that could be improved on for sure. Aside from that ribbon, maybe finding a way to get some larger print on the maps to me would make sense. But again, maybe a person who has, and I'd love to hear feedback, maybe they would typically use a magnifying glass once they were using maps. So maybe that's not as big of an issue. I can understand these are maps they put in all their Bibles. It would be a cost for them to try to figure out how to make larger print maps. But just some thoughts there, and then you have that final type paste down in the back. One other thing about this Bible is that they do include with it a black piece of construction paper, which honestly, this is something you can do with any Bible that has ghosting issues, but because this is geared toward people with eyesight problems, they want to make sure that they do everything they can to help them. So they just include that right in here. It says, place this sheet behind the page that you are reading to enhance readability. So I don't know if you see on the camera, there is some ghosting, especially in poetic sections, that tends to happen. So if you put a black sheet behind it, it will help just make the words on this page pop off a little bit better. So I do think that helps. And it's just really nice that they would include that in there you could tell people to do that, but by actually including it in there, I just think that's a nice gesture toward people who have eyesight issues. So that also is included with the Bible. Now, I think I said that we're going to show the measurements of this. So the height on this one is about 10 3/8 inches, close to 10.5 inches. And then you have close to 7.5 inches. And I'd say about 2.5 inches thick. And again, those are just estimates, but it is a quite large Bible. That being said, there are study Bibles that are close to this size, and people will bring study Bibles everywhere. So you can bring a Bible like this to church. It's actually, it's quite manageable for what they're trying to put in here, 2,500 pages of biblical text. So that is a look at the ESV Super Giant Print Bible in the English Standard Version in the genuine leather black cover. If you have any questions or comments about this Bible, I'd love to see that in the comment section below. Thank you so much for taking a look at this with me from a first perspective.